Deuteronomy 22:10, thou shalt not plow with an ox and an ass together. So to truly comprehensively understand Kentucky's election, really what we got to do is just look at one race. Let's take a look at the Auditor's race. Here's what the Kentucky Republicans brought forth.
Thank you all. Thank you all so very much. Clarence! Clarence, 11'7".
Now here's what the Kentuckians, at least the 30% who voted, rejected.
No. Go ahead and stick your chin out, Matt, because this one's going to hurt.
Special investigation into the tenure of Commissioner of Agriculture Richie Farmer.
But before we get into that, we need to talk about the most important initiative that my office is undertaking this year, and that is coming up with the count on unprocessed rape kits. Folks, this is extraordinarily important.
The responsibility for holding accountable a man I once cheered as a kid is a grim one. But the law makes no distinction between icons and the rest of us, and neither do I.
In Kentucky, when we get beyond mindless, empty, cotton candy rhetoric and get about the business of changing people's lives.
The Department of Agriculture under Commissioner Farmer was a culture of entitlement and self-dealing.
Life. It's because I was blessed with two parents who skinned their knuckles and worked hard to make sure I had every opportunity. One of those folks is my father, Larry Edelen here, who is a Meade County farmer. And let me tell you something, Mike. This man, I got the education that you mocked because this man was never late on a child support payment. Those are true family values.
Now you see, one guy, he's just too into his Islamic Allah, into his, brainwashing. And he thinks that's all he needs. He's like, I believe in Allah, so therefore I'm a good man. He doesn't care about the actions or the deeds. It's just about the ideas. Religion blocks out meaningful dialogue. Religion is a barrier to scientific progress, just like, Mike Harmon. When he talks, he has nothing to say. He just talks just to hear his own voice.
You know what? I entered this race, and I said I was going to praise God whether I win, and I was going to praise God whether I lose.
And so he just says, hey, I prayed and praised Jesus. Just like that Kim Davis, all right? What did she have to say? She gets out of jail, and then Shawshank Redemption. Oh, you're a strong people. You're God's people. Praise God. What? What that have to do with anything whatsoever? It was just bullshit, mindless bullshit. So you have one who is a believer in Allah, and the other one, he's a religious man too, but he's a principled man who has morals and ethics, but he also did a bunch of good deeds.
And I am so thankful from so many friends, so many people that have come and have helped. I'm going to show you one other thing. About 3 weeks ago, 2-3 weeks ago, I felt like God was leading me to pick up 5 stones to be symbolic of the David and Goliath. But you know what? I read the book. David won.
Edelen audited Gallatin County Schools, Jefferson County Public Schools, U of L, Letcher County Sheriff's Office. Everywhere that I went, I saw Edelen's name auditing, somebody. And that's good. That's good for taxpayers. It was because of Edelen that Richie Farmer had got thrown in jail.
One in which there were no qualms about using the taxpayer dollars as their own. The sheer volume and recklessness of the abuses shocked the conscience. This report covers 41 findings and makes 126 recommendations and over 150 pages. The former commissioner had state employees on state time take him hunting and shopping, build a basketball court in his backyard, mow his lawn, and even chauffeur his dog. These are just some of the documented abuses that ought to outrage every Kentuckian.
He has a track record of getting corrupt people out of the positions. He's charismatic. He's smart.
I want to thank people for their prayers. It was a tough race. I actually had, and it was reported again, I actually had 2 accidents. I totaled one van and I got rear-ended about a month ago. Walked away from both of them. I want to thank my family, my mom, my daughter, my oldest daughter, my youngest daughter wasn't able to make it, my wife, my colleagues.
So, I mean, Mike Harmon's got the skeevy personality of Mitch McConnell. He's skeevy as fuck. Where were you on that one, Karen Conley, you stupid bitch?
And I want to thank you all again. You know, if it wasn't for you all are the smooth stones.
Well, you know that you're the stones. You're the stones that David put in a slingshot and threw and hit in the head of Goliath. That's you. That's what you, the people, represent. The stones that David picked up out of the brook, the smooth stones, because you're smooth, that he puts in the slingshot, so you're killers. You're killers. You're accomplices to a murder, is what I'm trying to say.
You all are the people that have helped get this victory.
He got the skeevy personality of Mitch McConnell. If he would have made it with the turtle and would have made it with the snake. He's weird. He's a weird dude. Look at him.
No one person can campaign throughout the state without having great people praying for you, working for you, and help you. Mighty man. Yeah. But now, we will celebrate a little bit, and we will sleep a little bit. But then we have to get to work. You know, I think we had this victory, first, because of all the prayers, but secondly, because we stuck to the issues. Thank you.
In many respects, you know, I think that if there was a big brawl, Mike Harmon would have lost. He wouldn't have been able to win in a fight against Jean Marie. Jean Marie would have kicked Mike Harmon's ass. Now, Mike Harmon, he actually reminds me of the 5th clone in Michael Keaton's Multiplicity. The 5th clone, the one that was trying to shave his tongue. He wasn't. They take the razor out. It's adorable.
I want to thank my opponent, Adam Edelen. I know there's lots of things went on during the race, but we worked hard and we fought hard, and I appreciate his efforts. I do.
So, great decision makers. Good job, Kentucky. Good job. 30% who voted. You know, 1 million people voted. 2 million people stayed home. So, it doesn't say who all of Kentucky is, but if you're not even voting, you're not doing the least of your fucking duties. So, you're probably selfish, don't give a shit, ignorant, don't know what's going on, so you're just loud about it, and you never fucking vote. 30% of the people who voted loved Mike Harmon better than they liked Adam Edelen. But again, 1 million Kentuckians voted, 2 million Kentuckians stayed home, said fuck our democracy, fuck our government, fuck our way of life, I'm not going to participate in this bullshit. So it reminds me of the joke, why did the Kentuckian cross the road? To go fuck that chicken? No. To get away from the ballot box.
And I will be praying for him and his family as well.
Yeah, and one of the supposed morals that Mark Harmon has, he hates gay. I really hate gay people. And I'm really against abortion. He's an auditor. He's going to be auditing books. But he's talking about how he's against abortion. What the fuck does that have to do with auditing?
So let's get this straight. Adam Edelen wants to give us a lesson on Kentucky values?
Maybe this side of the aisle should put down the books of Ayn Rand and pick up the books of Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John.
Adam Edelen, the pro-choice liberal from Louisville, the guy who refused to respond to Kentucky Right to Life's candidate questionnaire, the guy who supports the Supreme Court's decision on gay marriage.
So in conclusion, I think we're going to have to wrap it up, but in conclusion, thank you all. Thank you. God bless. Thank you for the hard work. And let's get to busy. Get busy getting things taken care of. Thank you. God bless.
To see people are corrupt and spending money where they shouldn't be spending, whether or not you believe in gay marriage or abortion, and he's wrong on gay marriage. You're a fucking hater. You're not a good fucking person. He even quotes David in terms of David and Goliath. He says that he's David and Edelen was Goliath. Well, David and Jonathan had a very gay relationship. If you're going to quote somebody, maybe you shouldn't be quoting the homosexuals in the Bible. It goes against your point.
But just like we said in the race, we've got a lot of stuff we've got to work on. The biggest thing, and not to make a pun again, but yes, the biggest elephant in the room.
The elephant in the room because the Republican Party's mascot is an elephant. That's not a pun. That's not a pun. Mike Harmon, you don't know what the fuck you're talking about, man.
Is the pensions. And that's something we're going to definitely have to work on. I'm going to push, just as I promised, push for full performance audits to make sure that we can diagnose those pensions, make sure that we can do everything we can to fix those pensions, and make sure that we get them back on track. And I'm looking forward to working with our next governor and everyone else. Thank you. Thank you.
In colonial America, pregnant women didn't receive painkillers during delivery because pain was considered God's punishment for Eve's eating the forbidden fruit. You can't have painkillers. You're giving babies. You're having, you're giving birth to children. You cannot have Adam and Eve. That's why you can't have painkillers. Need I say more? Adam and Eve. You wicked woman.
Thank you. 1 minute. Okay. I know I don't have time to tell the Clarence joke, but I did say Clarence, 11'7". Ask me afterwards, for those of you who haven't heard the Clarence joke. But Clarence was a big giant. But just like the joke, the dad didn't know the real facts. And the real facts was, with hard work, money wasn't as important as people. People count.
Let's get busy. Let's get busy and pray. And maybe if we can, let's get busy and pray, everything will just work on out. Why? Because I stayed over in that room and stared at the wall, talked to myself. And apparently if you stay in this room by yourself and talk to a wall, good things happen.
And now Adam Edelen betrays our values again. Planned Parenthood has been exposed through a series of disturbing videos. We need a full audit of how Planned Parenthood is spending our tax dollars here in Kentucky. It's Adam Edelen's job as state auditor, but Edelen refuses to act because he doesn't share our values. No action, Adam Edelen. Another sanctimonious politician who can't see that the real problem is himself.
Work product and travel concerns. 5, abuses of the personnel and merit system. And 6, a system of weak management and lax oversight. Particularly troubling are the findings related to the misuse of state resources and employees for personal benefit.
Ladies and gentlemen, it's great with you to be here at Fancy Farm. I want to congratulate Mark Wilson for successfully making Fancy Farm the front porch of politics in Kentucky. And let me say out of the gate, if this were my front porch, I'd be happier to see some of you than others. I was struck by my friend Jamie Comer's comments about education. And I want to comment that I think all of the Republicans did an excellent job reading their speeches. I'm not struck by their literacy. I'm struck by how ungrateful they are. Maybe instead of laying off school teachers, she should let us give them a raise.
Over a 2-year period, the former personnel director was directed to reserve hotel rooms in the names of 2 employees who she knew would not be attending the state fair. The former commissioner used the rooms for the benefit of his family at a cost of $4,257 to the taxpayers.
In Rome, a father could legally kill anybody in his family. In Rome, legally, just for the hell of it. The Romans also used mouse brains for their toothpaste. and they would use urine for mouthwash. So they had a different culture, I think, right? Mouse brains. I don't use mouse brains for toothpaste and urine for mouthwash. Do you? Mouthwash. Toothpaste. Kentucky? Come on.
State employees reportedly performed work at the home of the former commissioner on state time, including constructing a basketball court in his backyard and moving a gun safe from his garage to his basement. In one instance, he reportedly called a merit employee from a training program at a local university for the purpose of driving him to a sportsman's warehouse in southern Indiana.
The Roman Emperor Commodus collected all the disabled and little people he could find and ordered them to fight each other to the death with meat cleavers in the Colosseum. Servants of the Roman Empire, the Roman Emperor had to put honey on themselves in order to repel the flies away from the king. So in Rome, they would put honey on themselves to get the flies to come onto them. And these Romans, they don't understand basic common sense.
So if this were my front porch and the crowd that showed up is what was on my porch, I would say I'm not buying what they're selling. It's pretty clear that in Mitch McConnell we've got a guy who thinks he was born in a log cabin, and it's pretty clear that in Rand Paul we've got a candidate who believes that he was born in a manger.
Roman Emperor Gaius made his beloved horse a senator. So, Mr. Ed, how do you vote on Obamacare? Saddam Hussein was given the key to the city of Detroit. So there's a historical fact you forgot about.
In another, he reportedly shot a deer illegally from the cab of a state-issued vehicle and then directed the state employee to field dress it for him.
So Mike Harmon talked about David and Goliath. Okay, so David and Goliath, the story is the 5 stones is that David is this young boy and Saul, and they're fighting the Philistines, and they're in this battle. And this is the rise of David. David will eventually become the king of Israel and Judea, one of the first ones to bring those two land masses together. And David had took the slingshot, right before the battle there was Goliath saying, whoever wants to battle me, nobody wants to battle him. But then David said, well, I'll battle him, prayed to God, got 5 stones out of the creek, and then I think he only used 1 stone and was able to knock Goliath down and killed him. So that's the 5 stones that Mike Harmon is actually talking about. But David is a much more complicated figure. That's a good story. It's a good allegory. It's used in a secular version as the fight for the underdog. If David wins over Goliath, then go underdog. And he was the underdog. But let's talk about David. David, he wanted to impress King Saul. Eventually, after the war, Saul becomes king, and then David's like his military commander. Well, David keeps winning these military victories, and King Saul starts getting jealous of all the victories. And so eventually King Saul sends David out on a fool's errand, and he says, if you want to marry my daughter, and David didn't really love the daughter, but the daughter really loved David, and he says, if you want to marry her, then, and her name was Michael, which is not what, I guess some women are named Michael. It's spelled differently, but it's pronounced the same. So Michael, wants to have sex with David or wants to be with David, and David King Saul offers David the offer or ultimatum, if you want to marry my daughter, then you have to go out and fight the Philistines. You got to fight the Philistines, and you got to collect 200 dick foreskins. 200 dick foreskins. If you kill 200 Philistines, cut off the foreskins, the tip of their dick, right? Circumcise them after death, and bring a whole collection, a whole basket. I guess instead of scalping people to prove that you killed someone, you cut off their dicks. And if David could bring 200 Philistine dick foreskins back to King Saul, then King Saul would let David wed his daughter. Turns out, David knocks it out like a champ, goes down the hill, kills a whole bunch of Philistines, he's got all these dick foreskins ready to, give to King Saul to marry. So that's something about David. He's going around collecting, Philistine dick foreskins. So, in short, David kills Goliath. David collects 200 Philistine dick foreskins, and then David becomes king. And basically in that order. David also cuts Goliath's head off, and then he carries it back to Jerusalem. It's kind of a gruesome picture. But to show off to the friends, right? Hey, look, I killed this big giant. And did the Philistines actually exist historically? No, they didn't. They're just like Adam and Eve and Abraham. King David, according to the New Testament, was an ancestor of Jesus, and most likely on his mother's side. Right. So here's a passage between Jonathan and David's relationship. At Jonathan's funeral, David declares that he loved Jonathan more than any woman. More than any woman. Jonathan is dead, and now here's a little prayer that David says. Saul and Jonathan, beloved and lovely, in life and in death they were not divided. They were swifter than eagles. They were stronger than lions. How the mighty have fallen in the midst of battle. Jonathan lays slain upon your high places. I am distressed for you, my brother Jonathan. Greatly beloved were you to me. Your love to me was wonderful, surpassing the love of women. 2 Samuel 1:23-27. 2 Samuel, the second book of Samuel, chapter 1, verse 23-27.
In 2007 and 2011, the former commissioner reportedly directed a staff member to fill Christmas baskets for use as gifts for his family with products purchased by the KDA and donated by Kentucky Proud vendors for promotional purposes.
I'm not buying what they're selling. This isn't about the people up here, friends. This is about you. It's about the public at large. It's about fighting to make sure that Kentucky has a fighting chance. I didn't agree with a darn thing Mitch McConnell said today except for one thing. He said this is a battle of values. He is absolutely right. And there's no better representative of Kentucky values than Allison Lundergan Grimes.
The former commissioner directed staff to purchase 2 refrigerators with department funds. While Farmer returned one of the refrigerators to the KDA, his former spouse told our auditors that she used it at her place of work and has since returned it to my office. Ladies and gentlemen, this is the missing refrigerator. The former commissioner took 4 laptops for his personal use that were intended to replace the computers of 4 staff members.
Here's some more. This is basically the same. How the mighty fallen in the midst of battle. Jonathan is slain in your high places. I'm distressed for you, my brother Jonathan. You've been very pleasant to me. Your love to me was more wonderful than the love of women. All the women. I don't know of any heterosexual male that would say something like that. This is my one. This is maybe J. Edgar Hoover, right? That's your man. That's who you rely on most for everybody. So is it brotherhood or is it platonic? Does it have nothing to do with, a sexual relationship, or is it saying that it surpasses the love of women, not just for the brotherlyhood, but because they're fucking each other, right? They were having sex, doing the act that could not be spoken of. And that's what Oscar Wilde suggested.
In Kentucky, when we get beyond mindless, empty, cotton candy rhetoric and get about the business of changing people's lives.
So Jonathan and David were most likely gay. It's most likely that they were gay. There's lots of things. Not only do they say that he loves women more than everybody else, right? He loved Jonathan more than all the women of the world. But he also, when they were alone together, David confides that he has found grace in Jonathan's eyes. I found grace in your eyes. Your eyes are so peaceful.
While 3 laptops and related equipment were recovered in January, one of the laptops, in addition to another used for the commissioner's personal service, remain unaccounted for. The former commissioner did not report any gifts during his 8-year tenure as Commissioner of Agriculture.
Throughout the passages, David and Jonathan consistently affirm and reaffirm their love and devotion to one another, and Jonathan is willing to betray his father, family, wealth, and traditions for David. 1 Samuel 18:1-3. Now it came about when he had finished speaking to Saul that the soul of Jonathan was knit to the soul of David, and Jonathan loved David as he loved himself.
while the law requires an annual reporting of anything over $200 to the State Executive Branch Ethics Commission. This exam found several gifts in excess of the legal limit, including $900 worth of free concrete from a local vendor to construct the previously mentioned basketball court in his backyard. This conference, the extravagance of this conference that had fewer than 200 employees, shows a stunning disregard for the economic difficulties faced by Kentuckians who work for a living. Of particular note, we calculate that $96,000 in total cost to the taxpayers with no clear benefit to them.
1 Samuel 8, 2-5, Jonathan made a covenant with David because he loved him as himself, and Jonathan stripped himself of the robe that was on him. So he's undressing, completely naked. Jonathan's completely naked in front of David. Gave it to David with his armor, including his sword and his bow and his belt. So it's sort of, giving his military armor, but also taking off your clothes and saying, hey, man, I, support you this much. 1 Samuel 20:41, when the lad was gone, David rose from the south side and fell on his face to the ground and bowed 3 times. And they kissed each other and wept together, but David wept more. So they eventually they find each other, and David falls to the ground, bowing to him, worshiping him. They get together and they just start kissing all over each other, right? And then they wept. They kissed and then they cried, and that's heterosexual. Is there in this machismo culture, is there anybody that would look in someone's eyes and see 2 men find grace in each other's eyes, build a covenant where they'll always defend one another, and when they see each other, they're kissing all over each other, they're crying, they're embracing each other? None of this is gay. None of that sounds gay to you. Mike Harmon, I don't know if you read your book that close. In fact, there's many fucked up passages in the Bible.
Mounted in the executive conference room of KDA, the other in the commissioner's personal office. Staff reported through interviews with my office that the order was expedited in order for the former commissioner to watch the NCAA tournament. The investigation
such as the story of Noah and the flood. There's violence and wickedness in the world, and so now God doomed everything. Everything's got to go. Everything must die. And it's not just the genocide for the human race, but for the grasshoppers, the horses, the elephants, crickets, ants, trees, roses. They all got to go. They all got to get slain. Everything must die.
So, Mitch and Rand, let's have it out, because what we know in Kentucky is that our politics need to be informed by the lessons that we learn on Wednesday nights and Sunday mornings. Things like that we are our brother's keeper, that while we don't owe anybody an outcome, we owe everybody an opportunity.
Numbers 23:22, God brought them out of Egypt. He hath, as it were, the strength of a unicorn. A unicorn. All right. So, a unicorn. Let's talk about Santa Claus and Rudolph. Let's talk about something real, all right? Let's talk about Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer. Isn't Jesus Christ just Santa Claus for adults?
And when they talk about Kentucky values, when Allison talks about Kentucky values, we don't know how right we are. It is our value that a woman who works 40 hours a week as a waitress ought to be able to feed her family without federal assistance. It is the values of Allison Lundergan Grimes and the Democratic House majority that a man who works in a job with a name on his shirt so his children's name can appear on a diploma ought to have a government that is on their side.
Slaves, submit yourselves to your masters with all respect, not only to the good and gentle, but also to the cruel. So slaves, always obey your master, even if they're evil.
The commissioner personally picked up and signed for 13 of these rifles. And while he has returned 7, 6 remain unaccounted for. Questionable spending. The United States Department of Fish and Wildlife directed the KDA to auction ginseng it had confiscated from an illegal harvest, with the stipulation that the proceeds be used by the department to promote the legal ginseng industry in Kentucky. This investigation found that the department used $43,000 of those funds towards the purchase of vehicles in an area in agriculture totally unrelated to the ginseng program.
Go now, attack Amalek, and deal with him and all that he has under the ban. Do not spare him, but kill men, women, children, infants, oxen, sheep, camels, asses. 1 Samuel 15:3.
Folks, this isn't about politicians. This isn't about the tired voices of yesterday. This is about whether we are going to elect people this November and then the Novembers to come that represent our values. Now, how many of you noticed today that Mitch McConnell and Rand Paul listened politely to each other and then left together? Kind of makes you wish that Rand Paul were on the ballot this year so they could leave the Senate together.
Then God said, take your son Isaac, your only one, whom you love with your heart and soul, and go to the land of Moriah. There you shall offer him up as a holocaust on a height that I will point out to you. Genesis 22:2.
Revealed significant findings related to the timesheet and travel abuses by employees who had close relationships with a former commissioner.
When the men would not listen to his host, the husband seized his concubine and thrust her outside to them. They had relations with her and abused her all night until the following dawn.
A supervisor refused to sign the timesheets due to the lack of a work product. These employees were paid 683 hours of compensatory time approved by a former personnel director who had no knowledge of their work. 14 troubling findings related to a weak system of management and operations are identified in this investigation.
Ezekiel 4:15, very well, God said, I will let you bake your bread over cow shit instead of human shit, which was very compassionate. He showed mercy, because if you bake your bread over human shit, it doesn't give that cow shit aroma.
Through understanding the lessons of Wednesday nights and Sunday mornings, that we are our brother's keeper, that in a civil society we truly owe something to one another. And folks, that's what's at stake this election. Kicking 500,000 Kentuckians off the insurance rolls with the stroke of a pen is callous, and it's not Christian. Maybe this side of the aisle should put down the books of Ayn Rand and pick up the books of Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John.
Remember when Moses ordered his Jews to kill all the men and boys, all the males, and all the women who have had sex? But the young girls who are virgins may live. You may keep them for yourselves.
You know, I'm also sorry Senator McConnell's not here, because not only are we working on this rape kit initiative, we also prefer the speeches that Rand Paul gives at Fancy Farm to the ones he gives in the well of the U.S. Senate. The difference being, in Fancy Farm, Rand Paul's limited to 5 minutes and his speeches don't jeopardize the national security of this country.
A Jesus quote, I have come to set the world on fire, and I wish it were already burning. Luke 12:49.
The future of Kentucky is worth the fight. And if you think it's going to be solved by people who can't sell you anything other than the saccharine cotton candy of tired, worn-out ideas and discarded ideology, no. The future is going to be won by young, dynamic, bright candidates who have a passion for the regular people of this state, who understand that yesterday doesn't buy us a tomorrow, who understand, like the greatest generation that came before us, that if we're going to build an America that is what it ought to be, it requires energy and passion and a commitment to government of the people, by the people, and for the people, not government of the few, by the few, and not for you. Thank you, and God bless you.
Everything is meaningless. Ecclesiastes 1:2. Meaningless, says the teacher. Utterly meaningless. Everything is meaningless.
So let's have it out. Let's make sure that when we look at this battle we've got this fall, that it's not a dispute between Republicans and Democrats. My friends, this is the difference between the mainstream and the extreme. Values that say we understand we owe a little something against the law of the jungle. We are the law of the land. Folks, for the next 94 days, stand up and elect Jack Conway in this outstanding Democratic ticket and reject the politics of cynicism and division. Thank you all, and God bless you.
1 Kings 11:3, and he had 700 wives, princesses, and 300 concubines, and his wives turned away his heart. King Solomon loved the concubines, but the 700 wives, it was too much. 300 concubines he could deal with, but 700 wives, it turned him off.
Thank you all. Now, thank you. Now, I would ask you, we need that same type of prayer this time. This is a tough battle.
Do not allow sorcerers to live, Exodus 22:18.
Remember it. Just remember the actor Mark Harmon. He's a lot better looking than I am, but cut that Mark off and put Mike in front of it, MikeHarmon.com.
It is so good to be back at Fancy Farm to speak to both the churched and the unchurched.
Well, I asked the question. I don't know if I said it, but I graduated with a triple major in math, statistics, and theater. Tell everybody that way I know the math, I know the stats. What I don't know, I just act like I know.
Well, I was asked the question because I've been endorsed by the Kentucky Right to Life, which I really appreciate that. And, of course, my opponent, he didn't even fill out his questionnaire, but I've been asked, what does it matter? What does it matter? Almost like the Hillary Clinton thing, what does it matter?
Tweeted out, takeaway from tonight, Mike Harmon makes things up. And I felt like, I didn't tweet out, but I felt like tweeting back, no, takeaway from tonight, some people, liberals, have no sense of humor whatsoever. But
especially in this particular case, from an auditor standpoint, aren't you just dealing with numbers? But, I think someone's morality, I think someone's ethics is very important because contrary to what somebody says, you really can't compartmentalize your life. What you do in one area will bleed off into the other.
So there's a lot of work ahead of it, but the long point of that, like any good politician, take a short story, make it long. The long point of that is my opponent, when he was talking to teachers, was saying one thing. When he was challenged in public, he was saying something else. So it's very important. But where I was going, and like I said, I chase rabbits, so forgive me. But where I was going with that is this is an important time. We need your prayers. We need people on the knee praying because this particular race, not just the auditor's race, but from top to bottom. And I'm so pleased we've got such a great ticket, top to bottom.
And if someone is not transparent in regards to life or into believing in traditional marriage, you wonder how that will bleed over into other issues. I've always been endorsed by the Kentucky Right to Life as far as I can remember. I'm thankful that I have the endorsement on this particular campaign. I know that, like I said, my opponent didn't even fill his out. For someone that promotes transparency, I think people would like to know. I was proud to be part of the 2004 General Assembly that ended up getting the marriage amendment through.
Great Christian individuals that are knowledgeable in the areas, and we represent all parts of states, all ages, old like myself and young like Allison back there.
Malachi chapter 2, verse 3, behold, I will corrupt your seed and spread dung among your faces, even the dung of your solemn feast. And so the buffet, after a buffet, your shit is that much worse. So the best defense actually for atheism is just to read the Bible. Read the Bible. Most people, I would say, haven't. You're just supposed to worship it. It's just supposed to be spoken about. Listen to your preacher. Listen to your parents. And I think there's an in-group tribalistic bias and in-group bias. So you've been hanging out with these people, and so it's not so much their religion, but it's that you're familiar with them. But it's still, just because Muslims or Jews or Buddhists or any of the religions are familiar with each other, that doesn't say that their teachings and their dogma is 100% legit. It has to pass some type of scientific inquiry.
Please take the time to bathe us in your prayers, bathe us for your protection. Pray that the truth will be seen. They're doing attack ads against me. They're doing attack ads against Whitney. They're doing attack ads against Bevin. And, so my prayer is that people will actually see us for who we truly are.
It's about the consequences that we find in elections. It's about whether we're going to support a candidate that is of the people, by the people, and for the people, or a party that is of the few, by the few, and not for you.
Thank you. We appreciate you. God bless. And if you need anything, just let me know. Thank you and God bless.
Weighing 9 pounds, 13.7 ounces. He's a big boy. Now, I've got pictures of him on my phone, but I guess we don't have time here. Please see me afterwards.
Anybody, do they endorse you in this race?
I don't know if there was an endorsement in this particular race. Basically, if there was, I would assume. See, I always take the time, this issue aside, I've always taken the time to sit down and speak with the KEA.
I would imagine it's because I'm probably either ahead or tied in the poll, which the last Bluegrass poll actually had me down by 2, but statistical tie, basically. My opponent has said that we can do great things if we get past the mindless cotton candy rhetoric. But unfortunately, I guess that only applies if if his race is safe. So that must be why he's doing this.
So, personally, to me, the gay debate isn't about religious freedom. In fact, that reminds me of this video I just saw. This little kid was carrying his little shopping cart around, but he was a little spoiled kid, and he just running his shopping cart into the legs of somebody else. And then he kind of backed off, and he was smiling. He thought it was hilarious. And then he did it again and did it again. The mother's just sitting there watching this kid take his shopping cart and run it into other people. So the guy, since the mother wasn't going to put a stop to it, he takes something out of his shopping cart, undoes it, like some milk or something, and then dumps it on the kid's head. And then the mother picks him up and then walks away. But that's what they're talking about with religious freedom. I have a right to keep pushing my shopping cart into you and run into you and insult you and discriminate against you. But when you tell me that what I'm doing is wrong, then, that's you're infringing upon my religious freedom. This is bigotry. It's bigotry. And that's the shroud that these bigots are hiding behind.
Allison Lundergan Grimes is the most energetic public official that I know. And she will lead this state in the direction that we need to go, one that treats women like human beings, one that understands that our future generation is totally married to our ability to make sure that a college education is affordable for every American. I've pushed those kind of reforms as your taxpayer watchdog, and I've even worked with some of the people who are booing me now.
They're saying religious freedom. So, if you're actually that homophobic, there's studies that says homophobic people are gay. We see it all the time with the congressmen, senators, all these politicians who are anti-gay, and then all of a sudden they're caught on Grindr, bending over, showing their buttholes off to everybody. So they say that they hate gay people. They say that they're against it, but they turn out to be the biggest queers on the block. They're a 5-alarm drama queen, flamer, lots of flair like Jacqueline, Will, and Grace. They're bursting at the seams. And so one day they're just going to want to, just take all the dicks in the world. Just big old, that's where the bag of dicks come from. They were repressing themselves so much, they just had to get a whole bag of dicks.
If Mitch McConnell won't use his power to fight for our jobs, we ought to use our power to make sure he doesn't get to keep his.
Teachers, and we appreciate everything that you've done as a state representative. But why do you support school choice? And I explained to her why, and she looked me right in the eye, and it made me half sad. But she said, "Mike, if you let parents choose which school to go to, they would never choose our school." And that kind of broke my heart. Because, one, she was wrong. I knew that school, and they were improving, and they were having more parents.
This is a time for Kentucky renewal, Kentucky greatness, and American renewal. And that is going to be driven by a new generation of leadership that recognizes that while you can chant in unison, that doesn't mean you can change a country. Making it a party that says, while you can raise the big money, the politics should still be about people. Folks, at the end of the day, this isn't just about a rejection of Mitch McConnell and his band of cronies. This is about the triumph of people and ideas over the old school politics of the past.
It was an exciting time. We had people circling the Capitol. We had people praying. There was an attempt by the Democrats to force two issues in the constitutional amendment. A lot of people don't understand, but a constitutional amendment can only have one issue. So by putting two in there, they could make it look like they voted for it, but in fact they knew it would be thrown out. But we had people praying. Almost all the Republicans and one or two of the Democrats actually walked out, and between the praying and our walkout, we forced their hand, and then the next day they did allow us to, Democrat leadership did allow us to amend it and did allow us to pass it out, with one issue being the issue of marriage between one man and one woman. And most people who know, when it hit the ballot, said almost 75% of Kentuckians did in fact vote for that.
Wow, what a great crowd. Well, I tell you what, it's great to be part of such a wonderful place and a fantastic Kentucky tradition. Now, I'm going to tell you, this is my very first fancy farm, so I want to make sure I have this straight, okay? Now, these people over here boo no matter what I say, even though deep down in their heart they know I'm going to be a much better auditor than Adam Edelen.
Great. Well, this is important to be here on a Saturday morning when it's cold and rainy, because we are 9 days away from election. We are very, very close. And I just appreciate, first thing I want to say to you is I appreciate how much you care about Kentucky, that you get up on a Saturday morning when it's cold and rainy, because we are talking about important things. And Kentucky is poised and ready to make some important decisions that could get Kentucky on track. So you are doing the right thing. Thank you for being here. I want to tell you a little bit about myself. Some of you I know, but those of you I don't know, I'm Allison Ball. I'm running for Kentucky State Treasurer. I'm from the mountains of eastern Kentucky. I'm from Floyd County, where my family has been for 9 generations, since the 1790s.
Well, go ahead and boo. I'm a big guy. I can handle it. I won't cry like Jack Conway. Now, let me tell you a little bit about my opponent. If you haven't heard about him yet, don't worry. Nobody has. That's why he didn't run for governor.
Hi, this is State Representative Mike Harmon and the Republican nominee for Auditor. I did want to take just a moment to address the attack ads that my opponent is running against me. Thankfully, they are so ridiculous and so over the top that almost anybody would know that they do not represent who I am.
Now, I know Adam talks a lot about being born into a farm family in Meade County, but did you know that he actually attended an elite prep school in Louisville?
So religious freedom also means anybody's religion. So do expect some type of Christian Sharia law to come in place with people like Mike Harmon, Matt Bevin. But religious freedom, I mean, Muslims, can Muslims marry children? Is that what we're saying? It's their religion. In their religion, they're allowed to marry children. Is that okay? Can Catholics still pedophile children? Is that acceptable? And then the Amish, they reject everybody from getting a driver's license because it goes against their religion. Can they do that? They're against drivers, period. Not just, gay people can't get married, but you can't have a driver's license. So is that the religious freedom that we're going to tolerate? So I don't know if we shouldn't tolerate discrimination and bigotry and any type, nobody is better than anybody else. We're all the same. We're all equal. So Mike Harmon, just like Matt Bevin, was a vote in favor of bigotry, of living in the Bronze Age, before the Dark Ages.
The fact that a $2.7 billion layer of government in Kentucky is accountable is because I worked with the Republicans and brought Democrats together in the name of good government. The fact that we're able to make sure our managed care program runs for the benefit of our patients and providers rather than the big insurance companies is something that I'm proud of. And at the end of the day, being the first auditor to enter the education space, because, ladies and gentlemen, in a time and place where back-to-school list looks like laundry list of janitorial supplies, when no teacher is getting a consistent raise, yet every teacher is spending money out of their pocket to buy materials for our kids. What we have to do is speak the message loud and clear that educational bureaucracies exist to support excellence in the classroom. It's not the other way around.
Of course, if you talk with Adam, you would think that I agreed with everything he says, every decision he's made since he decided to switch from the young Republicans to the young Democrats in high school in hopes of being governor someday. Well, I guess I understand. Adam is very deliberate with his words. Why, he even traveled all the way to South Carolina just so that he could praise Obama, and then he didn't even fill out his Kentucky Right to Life form.
Basically, they portray me as a jet setter who comes in and pushes a baggage handler. And of course, nowadays, one, that's just rude. But two, if you push a baggage handler, you know you're going to get an interesting inspection from TSA. And then it has me going on to the jet and having a young lady serve me a drink. And I'm not judgmental of people who choose to drink, but I myself am a teetotaler. So it's just crazy to portray me as that. Now, as for the expenses, I'm assuming that's legislative expenses over the last 13 years of service to the House 54th District. But it is sad that we would resort to such levels.
When I talked about Kentucky undergoing a renaissance to the first reporters who interviewed me, and they didn't report anything I had to say, but they wanted to, just fucking do a hit piece on me. Lazy, obnoxious pieces of shit. But I didn't report, they didn't report what I had actually said, and this is, important. When I look at the election between Mike Harmon and Adam Edelen, that's who Kentuckians are. They are Mike Harmon. They are not charismatic, principled, moral, do lots of good deeds. They only say, I love God, I pray, so I'm a good person. Adam Edelen is a million times better than Mike Harmon, but Mike Harmon is who Kentuckians are. That's who they are. That's who they believe in. That's who they are. That's them. And that's a problem because they're living in the Bronze Age. When I talked to the reporters, I had said that I wanted a renaissance because I wanted to get to the Enlightenment. And in order to get to the Enlightenment, we have to first have a renaissance where we wake up, have an explosion of culture, and then we have an enlightenment, a scientific age where we just talk about what's reasonable, what's rational, where can we go from here. But we haven't got to the Renaissance yet. We haven't got to the Enlightenment yet. We're still stuck in the Bronze Age, and that's embarrassing because Kentuckians are choosing to be ignorant even in the face of the age of information.
But, just so that you know, I actually got endorsed by the Kentucky Right to Life.
So, ethics and morality are very difficult, at least for me, to separate. When I was first elected to the State House, and I went up there, I had several people tell me, now, Mike, you need to set your faith aside when you're in State House. And of course, I tell everybody, if you can set your faith aside when you get up there, then you probably didn't have much faith to begin with. Because to me, my faith is the most important thing in my life. My family actually is and should be second, and then of course my country and my service actually comes third. And people say, you're going to put those in that order? And I said, of course, because if you don't put them in that order, God, family, and country, then you'll let something else influence you. That's not to say that I'm perfect. I'm a sinner saved by grace, but it is one of the things that I think is important to people and important for people to know.
So that's the reason why Mike Harmon, a skeevy little turd, was able to beat the Michael Jordan of Southern Democrat politics, Adam Edelen. It's because that's who the Kentuckians actually are. They see Adam Edelen, they reject him. They see Mike Harmon, they embrace him. That's me. I see me when I see Mike Harmon. They'll bring in a kind of Christian Sharia law. And even though this is ironic, a lot of times when it comes to the religious, ironically, they claim to have a moral high ground. They're actually bigger dicks than secular progressives. They're assholes. Religious people are assholes. It's because they can't see past their own faces, and, it's not just them. It's not just them in the world, and their conversation with their fairy tale, the sky daddy. There's other people in the world, and in a democracy,
But now Steve told him not to worry. His good friend Barack had taught him how to do this executive thingy with a pen and a phone. I told him you might want to be a little bit careful with that. And I went on and told Aiden a little bit about my campaign. I told him not to worry. I said, I know Adam's liberal allies in the House Democrat caucus, well, they've kind of put us in a bad shape over the last several years with billions of dollars in unfunded pension liabilities and billions more in debt. But don't you worry, your pawpaw and the whole Republican slate's going to win this year, and the next year we'll help the Republicans in the House take the House and give our good friend Speaker Stumbo the long-awaited retirement that his cronies helped put forward to him. Yeah. For more information, go to MikeHarmon.com. Thanks, and God bless.
I would encourage people to go to MikeHarmon.com, MikeHarmon, MikeHarmon.com, and that way you can follow the Facebook link. You can see a lot of our videos. It may be not only that we're close to Ty, but also I exposed him for giving $1,000 to Obama's campaign. And there are other things that he needs to do to improve. But for additional background on myself, as well as the race, as well as my current opponent, please go to MikeHarmon.com, click on the Facebook link, and then you can see some of the videos. You can also Google Mike Harmon for Auditor YouTube channel, and there's about 10 different videos on there. Thank you, and God bless. Paid for by Mike Harmon for Auditor.
There has to be some sort of negotiation, and I'm not a big compromiser. I don't think compromise is a good thing. But if you're just going to say believe, if you want to put in the Ten Commandments into the school system, then you're going to have to allow the other religions to put in their dogma. You got to be fair about this. So have you thought about this? Have you thought this through? Do you want all the religious doctrines in school, or do you want them all out? I think I'd be more in favor of having them all in there in a non-biased, fair manner. But, you know, I agree with the separation between church and state. And, you know, religion is just, my God, Crusades, KKK, the Russian czars, the Spanish Inquisition, the genocide of the Native Americans, the slavery, all that was under the guise of not just religion but Christianity. And the Catholic Church for about 1,000 years, for centuries, were just killing people and deeming people who they didn't like as heretics, burning them at the stakes, you know, like Jan Hughes and some of the other ones. But that's what the Catholic Church was notorious for doing. The Protestants came about and said, let's interpret the Bible for ourselves. And that's got a popular message, but you just have an in-battle between the Christian, you know, religion. Are you a Catholic purist, or are you a Protestant? And the Protestants try to do their own thing that the Catholics are doing. Sometimes they're even more oppressive.
About my opponent, let's talk about the new big baby in my life. No, I'm not talking about Jack Conway. Just because he swore to protect and defend the state constitution, which included protecting traditional marriage, broke down crying and refused to do his job.
The best defense, actually, in favor of agnosticism, atheism, is to read the Bible. Read the Bible. That's if you've actually read the thing, you'll see how horrible and horrific, and how there's no morals. You can't really learn too much from it in terms of what it has to give and what it offers. It's not a very good piece of work. It's not a very good piece of literature, and this historicity, whether it's a historical document, a lot of the things that have been put in, that have been written about, turn out to not even be true. So they're allegories to teach us how to live. They've taught the Bronze Age people simple solutions to complicated questions. And so, you know, where did it all come from? Just big old Sky Daddy clapped, and here we all were.
Of course, if you talk with Adam, you would think that I agreed with everything he says, every decision he's made since he decided to switch from the young Republicans to the young Democrats in high school in hopes of being governor someday.
And so it's simple solutions to complicated questions that people in the Bronze Age didn't understand, and they want to know. Why does the sun come up? Why is the moon here? Where's the stars? Oh, well, there's big Sky Daddy. He clapped, and there it was. Oh, okay, good. That's all I needed to know. Well, that's stupid. If you still believe, even the Pope today, Pope Francis, says that Adam and Eve is just a fable. It's a myth.
Well, I guess I understand
Do not allow sorcerers to live, Exodus 22:18.
Adam is very deliberate with his words. Why, he even traveled all the way to South Carolina just so that he could praise Obama, and then he didn't even fill out his Kentucky Right to Life form.
The future of Kentucky is worth the fight. And if you think it's going to be solved by people who can't sell you anything other than the saccharine cotton candy of tired, worn-out ideas and discarded ideology, no. The future is going to be won by young, dynamic, bright candidates who have a passion for the regular people of this state.
The Haitians, they believe in voodoo, and their voodoo spreads far and wide as far as their poverty, and very similar, it's Christianity, it's religion, and to me, it's all voodoo to me. It's all voodoo to me. And if you're telling me that I need to learn some voodoo in order to live properly and live right, I don't need that. I got logic. And it's the golden rule. You do unto others as you have them do unto you. You do unto others as you have them do unto you. It's that simple.
Adam is very deliberate with his words. Why, he even traveled all the way to South Carolina just so that he could praise Obama, and then he didn't even fill out his Kentucky Right to Life form.
Who understand that yesterday doesn't buy us a tomorrow. Who understand, like the greatest generation that came before us, that if we're going to build an America that is what it ought to be, it requires energy and passion and a commitment to government of the people, by the people, and for the people, not government of the few, by the few, and not for you. Thank you, and God bless you.
Do not allow sorcerers to live, Exodus 22:18.
In Kentucky, when we get beyond mindless, empty, cotton candy rhetoric and get about the business of changing people's lives.
To ourselves. Can we try that? Bronze Age people. And, check out the internet. It's a new fad that's coming around, but it might stick around longer than you think.